There's a quiet realization spreading among men, not born from bitterness, not from heartbreak, but from clarity. A kind of awakening that comes after years of watching patterns repeat themselves in silence. It's the realization that women, no matter how loving or loyal they appear, live in a world where faithfulness has become negotiable. And for the first time in history, men are not reacting with rage. They're reacting with distance. You can feel it everywhere, in conversations that used to sound hopeful, but now end with a shrug. In relationships that once promised forever, but now come with expiration dates built into the fine print. It's not that men have stopped loving women. It's that they've stopped believing that love guarantees loyalty. Because too many have seen what happens behind the curtain of modern romance. They've seen the text she didn't delete, the friend she swore was nothing, the sudden coldness that appears right before betrayal. Men aren't naive anymore. They know that the woman who posts her love online might still be flirting in private. They know that the same society that once shamed infidelity now glorifies freedom and options. And in that shift, the sacred meaning of loyalty was replaced by convenience. Today, a woman doesn't have to leave her man to betray him. All she has to do is open her phone, scroll, and give her attention, the one currency men value most, to someone else. That's the new form of unfaithfulness. Emotional infidelity dressed as harmless interaction. She'll say, "It's just a like," or "It's just a friend." But every man who's ever felt that gut-deep intuition knows better, because attention is energy. And once she gives that energy to another man, something dies inside the relationship. Not instantly, quietly, like a candle running out of air. Men have realized that loyalty isn't tested in big moments. It's tested in the smallest temptations. The moment she gets a compliment when you're not around, the message she could ignore but chooses to answer, the conversation she hides under the excuse of privacy. And that's what hurts most. Not that women cheat more than men, but that when they do, they hide it better, justify it smoother, and move on faster. That's why men have changed. They've learned that faithfulness isn't guaranteed by love, rings, or vows. It's a choice that must be made daily, and too many women stopped choosing it long ago. The modern man no longer expects loyalty to come naturally. He studies behavior, patterns, tone. He listens not to what she says, but to what she avoids saying. Because every man who has lived long enough in this world has discovered a simple truth. Most infidelity doesn't begin with lust. It begins with boredom. It begins with the slow erosion of appreciation. One day, she stops looking at you the same way, not because she stopped loving you, but because she started needing validation from places you can't reach anymore. It's not always malicious, sometimes it's subtle. A harmless co-worker, a late-night message that turns into a daily ritual. She says it's nothing, and at first you believe her, because you want to. Because your heart still sees the woman you promised your life to, not the stranger she's quietly becoming. But it's that denial, that blind trust, that ends up hurting men the most. Because by the time the truth surfaces, it's not just about betrayal. It's about how easily she could pretend, how easily she could look you in the eyes, kiss you goodnight, and lie with a straight face. Depends on emotional satisfaction, then faithfulness was never unconditional. It was transactional all along. Men now understand something philosophers warned centuries ago. When emotion becomes the compass, morality becomes flexible. The same woman who swears she'd never betray you will do exactly that if she feels unloved long enough. And when caught, she won't admit deceit. She'll reframe it as liberation. I had to find myself. I wasn't happy. We grew apart. But the truth is, faithfulness and happiness aren't the same thing. Loyalty isn't about constant pleasure. It's about principle. And that's what men are grieving, not just lost relationships, but lost principles. Because the kind of faithfulness men once believed in, the kind that survives distance, desire, and doubt, has become rare. The kind of woman who protects her love even when no one's watching, that woman is now treated like an anomaly, not a standard. So men adapt. They stop chasing forever and start observing patterns. They guard their hearts behind casual relationships, not because they hate women, but because they've learned that in a world where temptation is endless, faithfulness has become temporary. Ask any man who's been through real betrayal, and he'll tell you, it's not the cheating that breaks him. It's the calmness in her voice when she denies it. It's the way she acts offended when you sense something's wrong. It's the audacity to flip the script and call you controlling, paranoid, or insecure for noticing what she was trying to hide. That's when a man learns something painful about human nature. The truth doesn't live in words, it lives in consistency. And when her consistency disappears, her loyalty usually left long before. Men have realized that women are capable of compartmentalizing emotions with surgical precision. They can love you sincerely and still betray you privately. They can cry in your arms, then text another man 5 minutes later. And the worst part? They can convince themselves it's not really cheating. That's how the modern mind rationalizes sin, not by denying it exists, but by redefining it until it feels harmless. It's just a message. It's just a drink. It didn't mean anything. But meaning isn't the problem. Intimacy is. Emotional access is. That's why faithfulness, in its purest form, is dying, because it requires restraint, and restraint is now seen as oppression. Women are told that curiosity, adventure, and self-discovery are noble pursuits, even if they come at the cost of stability. But when men watch that play out, when they see commitment treated as a cage and temptation dressed as freedom, they lose faith, not only in women, but in the very concept of partnership. And it's not just the infidelity itself, it's the environment that enables it. Every platform, every app, every dopamine hit rewards attention-seeking. Men have watched the line between validation and loyalty blur until it vanished. She might never meet the man she's flirting with online, but she's feeding him the attention that used to belong to her partner. And in the male psyche, that's betrayal. Because for men, loyalty isn't just physical, it's about exclusivity of focus. You see, men understand that desire is natural. They know attraction can't be fully controlled, but what separates love from chaos is discipline. And what men have observed, painfully repeatedly, is that discipline collapses the moment women believe they can get away with it. Society tells them, follow your heart, but never says, honor your word. It glorifies expression, not integrity. And that's how loyalty dies, not through evil, but through entitlement. Men aren't blind to their own flaws. They know some men cheat too. But the difference is in how it's justified. When a man cheats, it's called betrayal. When a woman cheats, it's called emotional neglect. One is labeled villainy, the other therapy. And that hypocrisy eats away at trust. Because how can faithfulness exist in a culture that excuses female betrayal as healing and condemns male discipline as control? So men retreat. They stop investing emotionally. They stop fighting for women who no longer fight for loyalty. They no longer see relationships as safe ground. They see them as battlefields of perception, where truth bends depending on who's crying. And that's when something inside a man changes forever. Not his love for women, but his expectations of them. There's a particular silence that lives inside a man after betrayal, a silence most women will never understand. It's not anger, not even heartbreak. It's the death of innocence. It's the moment a man realizes that love, in its modern form, has become performance art. That what he thought was devotion was sometimes just convenience disguised as affection. And once that illusion breaks, he never looks at relationships the same way again. Men today have realized something older generations never had to question, that loyalty has become seasonal. It lasts as long as emotions do, and emotions now change faster than ever. The digital world gave everyone a mirror and an audience, and the temptation of attention has turned into a quiet addiction. Every notification, every like, every compliment becomes a small escape from reality. And that's where modern infidelity begins. Not in a hotel room, but in a moment of emotional escape. You can't compete with that. No man can, because you can't outlove validation. When a woman learns that attention feels like oxygen, she doesn't need to physically leave you to emotionally disappear. She starts detaching in pieces, the way she used to share her day, the way she used to smile when she saw you, the way she used to reach for you just to feel your warmth. Those small withdrawals are the emotional red flags men are now learning to notice. And here's the harsh truth. It's not always because she's evil or manipulative. Sometimes it's because she never learned what loyalty really means. Faithfulness isn't about never feeling tempted. It's about remembering who you chose even when temptation arrives. But that level of awareness requires discipline, and discipline isn't romantic. It doesn't trend, it doesn't get likes, it doesn't fit into the soft life aesthetic. It's quiet, invisible, and hard, which is why fewer people practice it. So men have adjusted. They've realized that the best way to avoid betrayal is not to expect permanence in temporary people. They date with their eyes open. They commit slower. They test character longer. They understand that words mean nothing without time revealing their truth. A man can love deeply and still remain detached, not out of fear but out of wisdom. Because once you've seen how easily loyalty folds under pressure, you stop gambling your peace on promises. And that's where this generation of men stands. Not bitter, but cautious. Not hateful, but awake. They've stopped blaming themselves for expecting something sacred in a culture that treats love like entertainment. They've learned that modern dating doesn't reward faithfulness. It rewards distraction. And so they've chosen a new kind of strength, solitude, the kind that keeps their peace intact and their mind unshaken. What men are realizing now isn't that all women are unfaithful, it's that faithfulness itself has lost its meaning. It's no longer about commitment through temptation, it's about comfort until something better appears. The promise of loyalty has been replaced by the language of boundaries, space, and self-discovery. And in that space, countless relationships quietly collapse, while everyone pretends nothing happened. Men see it. They feel it. The same way an animal senses an approaching storm before the clouds appear. They notice the shift in tone, the late replies, the laughter that sounds rehearsed. They see her glow differently when she's texting someone else, and instead of confronting it, many simply disconnect. Not because they don't care, but because they finally understand that loyalty can't be begged for. It has to be freely given, or it isn't real. So they stop chasing explanations. They stop proving their worth. They stop believing that more effort can fix what a woman has already emotionally left. Because faithfulness, once broken, doesn't just destroy trust. It rewires a man's belief system. It teaches him to observe, not invest. To protect his peace more than his pride. To walk away before losing himself trying to keep what's already gone. And yet, beneath all the cynicism, there's still hope. Because the realization that women aren't always faithful isn't meant to make men hate women. It's meant to make them love themselves enough to choose wisely, to build strength before intimacy, to understand that loyalty starts with self-respect. A man who respects himself will never tolerate half-love. He won't cling to potential. He won't mistake attention for affection. He'll simply recognize when trust has died and walk away without a speech. That's the new generation of men, not broken, but evolved, not cold, but clear. They've stopped chasing perfection and started honoring peace. They've learned that silence speaks louder than confrontation, that boundaries protect more than forgiveness, and that solitude, when chosen, is not loneliness, it's freedom. And if you've ever lived through the kind of betrayal that made you question everything, remember this: you weren't foolish for loving deeply. They were foolish for thinking that kind of love was replaceable. Because one day, when the noise fades and the attention dries up, what every unfaithful person realizes is that loyalty is the rarest luxury left in the modern world. If this message hit you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, not just for the algorithm, but because somewhere out there another man needs to hear that he's not crazy for wanting something real. He's just living in a world that's forgotten what that word truly means.